We're about, at least many of us, ready to return home to our states and to visit with our constituents in person. And that's a common practice for me. I can indicate to my colleagues in the Senate that the conversations, they're wide-ranging at home, but certainly if there's a theme, it's the result, consequences that Americans and Kansans are feeling in regard to inflation. The things at the grocery store, the price at the pump, rent, all the things are rising, and people are struggling to pay the bills, and things are being left out of what someone can afford in their budget because everything costs more. Kansas is an energy-producing state. We certainly are an agricultural state, and I would tell you when I talk to farmers and ranchers, commodity prices have gone up, and one might think that that's something that would be very beneficial to farmers. But this inflation has raised the price of everything that they purchase to create the crops that feed us across America and around the world. One of the components and one of the reasons that inflation is rising so rapidly is energy costs. Even for my farmers, fertilizer is made from phosphates and natural gas. Diesel fuel is used in the vehicles and tractors, trucks, and our ability to provide that food for the world is being hampered because we're going to lose money when we grow crops, even though they may bring a higher price than they did just a few months ago. So many components of what we purchase in this country, and one of the reasons costs are all rising is because the price of oil and gas. I am confused by the policies that many in this body promote. At the same time, they are asking for relief at the pump. And yet, time and time again, what policies, what legislation, what conversations here, what actions are taken, particularly by Democrats, is to reduce the supply of oil and natural gas. It makes no sense to me when the policy, in fact, how can it make sense for people to propose to eliminate the tax on gas? I suppose their interest is in making gas more expensive is to try to reduce the use of oil and natural gas fossil fuels, but on the other hand, if they lower the tax on gas, it would be to lower the price, which is to encourage the ability to purchase. President Biden asked the Russians to increase their production in order to alleviate the price at the pump in the United States. We've been talking to Europe about how we're going to help them solve their natural gas shortage should we have a crisis in Ukraine and natural gas can no longer be imported from Russia, and we're working to provide more natural gas. We should be doing everything in our country to increase the supply. The definition of inflation is so, I think, pretty basic. It's too few goods being chased by the same amount of dollars. Even this week in the Banking Committee, the conversation over the last month has been about whether or not the Federal Reserve, which has no ability, no legal ability, no purpose in setting the price of gas and oil, and they would do so by trying to restrict loans by financial institutions to oil and gas energy producers at the same time that they're supposed to be combating inflation. So it seems to me on one hand and on the other hand, and they don't make any sense. They're not logical and in so many instances hypocritical. We want to have an energy policy that is to produce more. I'm an all of the above energy, but the policies of this country in which we see trying to eliminate oil and natural gas, fossil fuels, at a time in which the cost at the pump, the cost in agriculture, the cost at the grocery store is rising, we should be focused on trying to make certain that Americans can afford to live in this country. We will not achieve that by trying to eliminate or reduce the supply of natural gas and oil. Mr. President, I will be talking to my constituents about this issue as I return home this week, and I wish that we could have a coherent conversation, discussion, and policy development. We need to produce more. The days in which we became energy independent in the last administration were ones in which we felt a sense of relief, a sense of safety and security. And I long for the days in which we are able to recognize that our national security, our economics are benefited by a strong oil and gas industry meeting the needs of Americans and taking care of ourselves at home and providing greater national security as we deal with crises around the world. Mr. President, I yield the floor.